Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Queen City Unleashed. I am Shayo Lucian, and today I'm with Bruce Moffett of the Moffett Restaurant Group, owner of Good Food on Montford, where we're shooting today, Stagioni, and Barrington. Bruce, welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate you spending some time with us. I've eaten in a couple of your restaurants and thoroughly enjoy the food, so I'm excited to get to talk to the man behind such great dishes here in Charlotte. All right, we're going to get started with more of background about you. This question can go any way you want, but if you met someone on the street, how would you describe yourself? Who is Bruce Moffett?
I guess I'm kind of quiet. I'm reserved. I'm passionate about what I do. I have a good sense of humor. And I really enjoy kind of the whole process of cooking and figuring out, how to get my vision onto a plate and into people's hands.
Well, I will tell you, as someone who's eaten some of your food, you do a very good job at that. Where are you from originally? Tell me about your backstory. How did you end up here in the Queen City?
Well, we just took up the whole hour. I was born in D.C. My parents got divorced when I was 2, and we moved to Rhode Island and lived in Rhode Island until I was 5, I think. And then we moved to Michigan, where my mom got her master's in social work.
At Michigan?
At University of Michigan.
Go Wolverines. I'm from Michigan, born in Detroit,
right?
so
okay,
a lot of love for the Wolverines.
We lived in Ann Arbor. I don't really remember much of it other than it was really, really cold in the winter and kind of hot in the summer.
My parents left. They're from Nigeria, and they left because of how cold it was.
We lived on this hill, and you had to, the trick was to get to school, there was a highway below us, and the trick was to get across the hill so you could get onto the catwalk that went over the highway before you slid down on the hill into the oncoming traffic. So you'd be like on all fours, like scratching across the ice and trying to get
that. That doesn't sound fun.
Nah. And then when she graduated in social work, and we moved back to Rhode Island, which is where kind of my grandparents were. And,
okay.
A decent amount of my family. My dad was in the D.C. area. So.
Okay. When you say D.C., were you D.C. proper or like Northern Virginia or the Maryland side?
Maryland side. He's,
okay.
Like in Rockville,
Garrett
Park, that area.
I grew up in Richmond, and so there's this whole thing when people say they're from D.C., I'm like,
yeah.
D.C. proper or D.C. adjacent? Because they're definitely the areas around that people it's easier to, like Fort Mill people saying they live in Charlotte. It's just easier that way to explain it.
So then I went to University of Rhode Island, studied politics, did an internship in London, and then I did graduated, and my last semester at University of Rhode Island, I did an internship in D.C. where I hooked on with a U.S. senator and did the political thing for a little while.
From politics to chef.
It goes all over the place. And then, met a girl, followed her out to Los Angeles, and then that relationship didn't work out, so I moved back to D.C. and did some trade association work, which was kind of the worst job I've ever had in my life.
Oh, no.
I just, I loved writing, and I loved the political atmosphere, but I just wasn't very good at the type of writing they wanted me to do.
Okay.
And I couldn't meet their time constraints because I'm a slow writer. But I did write a cookbook, so I do know how to write.
On your time.
Yeah, but on my time and with my narrative. So kind of within a span of 2 or 3 weeks, when I was working at the trade association, I lost my job, and my girlfriend broke up with me.
Oh, man, you were going through it. That's a rough 3 weeks.
Yeah. So I was a little despondent, a little overwhelmed, and I had a really good friend that had moved to Charlotte after college, and he said, kind of, check it out. And so I came to check it out, and, was full on in the making great decisions mode that only a young 20-year-old who's depressed can make. And so we managed to talk each other into buying a pizza place. And so we bought a pizza place out off Highway 51 by the Calvary Church. And we ran that for a little while. And my buddy, my partner in that pizza place, realized we weren't going to be overnight millionaires selling pizza. And he kind of bailed on the idea early on and kind of left me to run the whole thing. So I started running it. I mean, he was there, but did a lot of the cooking and all that, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I felt like I had found my calling, but I didn't know how to run a restaurant, and neither did he. So we kind of broke even, lost money, and eventually, we decided that it was just what he needed to go make a living, and I was never going to be able to figure out how to run a restaurant. And also during that time, I had a relationship and I had a son.
Okay.
During that time of the relationship, and that was a great thing, but we couldn't figure out how to make it work with his mom. And so eventually, we sold the restaurant. I sold the restaurant and applied to go to culinary school, and got into the Culinary Institute of America, which is in Hyde Park, New York. So
it's no small feat.
Nah, I was pretty excited about it. And then I got there and I was like, oh my God, because I was a little later in life. I got there and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And what have I done? And so I moved to New York, moved away from my son, which made me really, really, really sad, and moved to upstate New York, and
wow.
And did this culinary program. And I got there, and it was overwhelming. But I'll have to say, I had a purpose for going there, and every time all the other students were like, hey, we're wasting our time and money, we're not cooking, but they were actually teaching us how to run a business. So all those questions I had when I owned my pizza place were getting answered, like, I know what food cost is, but how do I calculate it, and why is it important, and how does it work with labor costs, and how does it work with all the other aspects of running the business? Like, how does this whole puzzle fit together? And so when we started talking about that in school, I was like, oh, this is the most important part, and I'll figure out the cooking part.
Yeah.
And I did, but I had bad hand-eye coordination, and I struggled with my knife skills and struggled with my confidence. I remember like one story from culinary school, which kind of is analogous of my overall
success.
I was doing awful in school, and I was questioning everything I did, and I had no confidence, and every little thing I was like, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? And so we went out one night, and I was doing awful. I was getting bad grades. We went out one night and with some friends, and one of my friends was from Brooklyn, and he was just an angry Irishman. He actually called me a few weeks ago, and it turned out he'd been in jail.
Oh, goodness.
So he was that angry. So he decided this group of guys were eyeing us, and they wanted to fight us, and I didn't even see them. And so he went out and picked a fight. There were three of us, and picked a fight with five guys.
Oh,
and,
that's not great odds.
Yeah, no, it was not great odds. And this one kid came up and started yelling at me. And I figured, hey, he's yelling, he's not going to hit me. And then I turned, right as I was getting ready to turn around, some other kid walked up and just decked me. And he hit me right here. And I don't know if you've ever seen Rocky, but that scene where they cut his eye open because it's so swollen he can't see. That's what my eye looked like the next day. So I got up, and the next morning at 6 a.m., got myself ready for class, was on a solid 2 hours of sleep. My eye was swollen shut. And I went in there and I was thinking, most of your life you've avoided fights. You've gotten in a fight, and the worst possible thing has happened to you. And you got up the next morning and you went about your business. So just stop being afraid.
Yeah.
Bad things happen. You just got to get through them. Stop being afraid. And so I made a commitment to myself not to ask any more questions, just to trust my instinct and do what I do. And so I started doing that, and then about 3 days later, the chef, who was this big German guy, goes, and he called us by our numbers, not by our
Wow.
not by our name. He says, "Number 8, please come to the front of the class." And I said, I went up, and he's like, "I just want to let you know you've had a huge turnaround in your cooking. Your cooking is by far the best in the class. Everything you do comes out really well." He's like, "Maybe you should just get punched in the head more often." And we had a moment, but I guess my point is, at that point, I was like, all right, I can do this. I have to trust myself. And so I went through culinary school, and then when I graduated, I got an offer in Atlanta, which seemed like a no-brainer because it was only 4 hours from my son.
Yeah.
And so I worked in Atlanta at a place called Cherokee Town and Country Club for a couple of years during the Olympics. And I would drive to
The
Charlotte. Was it 96?
96 Olympics.
Yeah.
Wow, what a time to be down there.
Yeah, it was fun. And I think even the Braves won the World Series when I was down there. So
Good luck to the city.
that was kind of cool, yeah. So I would commute back and forth and see him. And then I was always kind of fascinated in the kind of multi-course, Michelin-starred type experience. So I got offered a job in Boston. And I went to Boston for that. And basically what I was trying to do when I graduated school was I always felt like my initial job, I started out way above my head. And so when I went to culinary school, I wanted to build a solid foundation. So I went to school, and then I worked for a guy that was an instructor or helped run the Culinary Institute in Atlanta. And so it was very kind of militaristic, very detail-oriented. So I felt like I wasn't going to get above my skis. I was going to go and learn every little aspect of the business. And then, I wanted that high-end experience. So when I got offered the job in Boston, I jumped on it. So I went to Boston, worked in arguably the best restaurant in Boston for a little over a year. And then, I felt like I had learned what I was going to learn there and wanted my next opportunity. And I knew I didn't want to manage a ton of people. I knew that I wouldn't be good at that. I knew I wanted to run my own 40-seat restaurant. And so I got offered a job at a small 40-seat restaurant, which is basically what I was hoping to one day run myself. And I wanted to go in there. And usually when I go into a restaurant for a job, I try to look at the management. And I figure, what are the things they would do, and what are the things I wouldn't do?
Right.
And so the guy that I worked for was very kind of work, just really hard. We were open 7 days a week. There were times where I worked 36 hours in a 48-hour period. And I thought, okay, I wouldn't do that to someone. And
not your style.
I want to give a better work life. But at any rate, but he also had really good methods for keeping track of food costs, keeping track of labor costs, and all that stuff. So it was a really valuable experience. So I went there. I started out making salads, and then people kept quitting. And within 8 months, I was the executive chef. And then the manager quit, and the couple that owned it got divorced. So within a year, I was running the restaurant. And so I did that for about 3.5 years, ran that restaurant. And it was a small 40-seat restaurant, exactly what I wanted to do.
This in Boston?
This is in Boston, yeah. And then, my son was getting a little older, and I felt like I wanted to be more part of his life, and that, like knowing his mother the way I knew his mother, I felt like at some point maybe I might need to step in. So I started to look for job opportunities in Charlotte, and I came down, and one of the first restaurants I applied, actually it was the first restaurant I applied to. I sat down with the woman that owned the restaurant, and she said, actually, I'm trying to sell it. Would you be interested in buying it? And I'm not ready for that, but it's a great opportunity, but I'm not ready for that, but it's a great opportunity. And I did that to myself for the better part of maybe a month and a half. And then I've always said to myself, you owe yourself a few risks in life.
Yeah.
Things where you can just completely blow it up. And I said, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I don't really have any money right now. And so I threw everything, quit my job, threw everything I owned on a moving truck, and that was Barrington's.
No
And
way.
that's 24 years later. It's still there, and it was not a restaurant that type of restaurant that was familiar in
Yeah.
Charlotte. Most of it was meat and three. I just remember always thinking that everything on all the menus was some sort of protein, like filet mignon, and then it was always served with mashed potatoes, vegetable of the day, which was like zucchini, carrots, peppers, all sauteed
Yeah.
together, and then maybe some sort of sauce. And so to have like well thought out kind of plates with
Yeah.
different ingredients that all work together was not really something people were used to.
Huh. Okay. Well, thank you. That is.
So that's my long-winded story.
No, I appreciate it. That is, wow, you did a lot of things, but my favorite nugget in there is you're punched in the head and your career takes off. Like, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe that's a note. If you're struggling, just take a boxing class and you hit a couple times, and who knows?
Yeah, or you could go the other way and, just have, like the moral of the story is have confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
You can do this. And don't question everything. Don't double overthink everything.
Yeah.
And just sometimes you just got to grit your teeth and go forward.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. That is what we are doing here, figuring
Right.
this out.
I'm sure it's a similar mindset to doing the podcast.
Absolutely. There was a class. I just listened to a bunch of them and over the years, and before I knew it, I was taking notes from different podcasts, and I didn't even know why I started to critique them. But back in my mind, I'm like, I like this podcast, they do this, or they conduct their interviews this way. And I just started paying a lot of attention to it, and I would tell my wife sometimes, and she was just like, oh, okay. And I had I really was not thinking about doing a podcast at all. And then when I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, all the things that I'd started to take notes of in like the last year or two, like all started to come back. It's like, remember, you like this group that interviews this way, or you like the way that they have humor on this one. And it all kind of just came together. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can figure it out. So yeah, the confidence part is very essential. Let's talk about Charlotte.
Okay.
What do you like to do for fun in the city? When you're not cooking, are you someone who goes home to cook more for fun, or what do you like to do for fun? How do you decompress when you're not at work?
I have a 15-year-old son, so we do a lot of stuff together. So we've decided that we're going to learn how to play golf. And so,
I'm also still learning.
Yeah, no, it's
hard.
It's a real treat.
You're
You're like, oh, I got this, and then the next day, all you do is hit the ball sideways.
Yeah, it is frustrating to say the least.
And then play some tennis. I try to do a little physical activity. I learned early on when I was cooking that with our hours we keep and with the type of work we do and with the kind of culture and nightlife that you really have to take care of your body.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hours on your feet, and it'll really take a toll on your legs and your back if you're not in some sort of core strength. So, I try to keep physically and mentally active. I dabble a little bit in the restaurants, checking out the competition, or it always winds up checking out the competition, but in my mind, it's just to go out and relax and have a nice time.
So you can't go into a restaurant and turn your brain off. Like, you go into any restaurant anywhere, you're probably analyzing a lot.
That whole thing, like, you learning podcasts.
Yeah.
What would I do? What's working here? What's not working here? What's something that they're doing really cool? What's something that maybe they're missing the mark? And hopefully I can bring that back to my experience. I try not to judge what anyone else is doing or how they're doing it. I just try to internalize it and say, okay, like, these are the things that I want to see in my restaurants.
I have a very funny question for you about standard, like how to judge a restaurant. And some of our friends from, they live in Baltimore now. One of the guys, he says he judges a restaurant based off of how often they come around and check your water. Because he says that that's a good sign to show how attentive they are Any truth to that? This one's for you, Sean. Any truth to that?
My grandfather, when I was a little kid, he was this big 6'6" guy, and he was just not a pleasant person. But to that vein, he used to judge a restaurant if they brought the coffee on a saucer. If they spilled any of the coffee into the saucer on the way to the table, he would take down their tip from, I think back then it was standard 15 down to 10%.
Oh my goodness, just for the coffee?
Just from the coffee. He was ruthless. No, I mean, I don't think I get that granular with it.
Okay.
My big thing, and the thing I tend to notice the most is, like, do you have more people than you need? Like, I tend
from
to...
like the staff perspective or from
Yeah,
the
from a
guest?
staffing perspective. Like, if there's a server for every 2 tables or something like that, I just think that, to me, then everyone starts getting in each other's way, and it becomes a different dynamic. I think that's kind of one of the things I notice the most about restaurants.
Do you have some restaurants in Charlotte or breweries or cocktail bars? What are some of your favorite places where you maybe are analyzing less and enjoying more that aren't your restaurants?
Yeah, like I tend to go close to me. I live in South Park, so I go to Yama a lot. And then I go to, there's a place out on Park and 51 called Musashi, which is it's a Japanese restaurant. I wouldn't go for necessarily because they have the greatest sushi in the world. The sushi's good, but the Japanese dishes they have are really good. Where else do we go? We go over to Legion a lot.
Okay.
I'm friends with Phil, who owns the place, and I really enjoy the food there. And it's just kind of casual and relaxed.
Yeah. They have a good, there's something on their menu. I cannot remember what it is. They have pretzels, the big pretzels, but they also have some dish like Mediterranean dishes sometimes that are really, really good. And to me, it's kind of like some of the better brewery food in Charlotte.
Yeah, Gene Briggs runs that program, and he was a chef here when I first moved to Charlotte, and I remember on my first time I got a food delivery. I think I ordered from Cisco, and the tomatoes were kind of greenish pink, and the lettuce, the mixed greens had some issues, and I started to panic because I came from Boston, where basically you're like, oh, I want 5 scallops, and they would come and bring you 5 scallops, and here they're like, oh, you got to get them frozen, and you got them in 10-pound increments, and it was just crazy. So when I met Gene, he said, stop panicking. We have a great farmers network, and he introduced me to a lot of the local farmers, which was kind of a lifesaver. Showed me where the farmers markets were. So it was Gene Briggs and Tim Grudy who were the main 2 people that did that. So Gene is running Legion right now, and he's been in this market forever. He's one of the most talented chefs in Charlotte, and that's why. When you go to Legion, the food's a step above. They're doing a bratwurst and a pretzel roll with coleslaw and beer cheese that I'm kind of obsessed with right now.
Okay, and next time
not that I'm counting. But.
So, like, my wife is German, and so we love a good bratwurst. So now, we need to go by there again soon to try that.
Yeah.
Hidden gems. So, when you first moved here, 2000-ish, Charlotte was a very different place.
That's true.
What are some of the hidden gems that you enjoy that have been around since the beginning when you got here?
That crazy place right down the street, Moosehead. It's kind of fun.
It is very much a dive bar with very, very good wings. We were there a month or 2 ago, and the wings are great, but it is very much a dive bar.
I get Donnie's Blackened Wings. There was a place called the Fairview Grill, and now it's called Lucky Lou's. We used to go there a lot just to unwind after work. That was kind of, and as I stated before, Musashi has been kind of on my list for a long time. And then what's the place? The Mexican place? Was it Azteca on Woodlawn, which it's just ridiculous. It's so much fun.
Really?
Like some of the plates they have are this big, and you're just like, it's just so.
You can't eat
I
all
brought
that
my
food.
son there for the first time the other day, and he was just like, "Dad, this is so cool."
A 15-year-old who can eat as much, like he's eating more food than anybody probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a perfect place for him.
Yeah.
What are some things that you think in Charlotte stand out to you from a city? So you've lived in Boston, spent time in upstate New York. I'm sure you were in the city.
Yeah.
Been in Atlanta.
Yeah, I did my
What-
internship in Manhattan.
So what are some things here in Charlotte that you think make our city special or that are standout? And that could just be from personal enjoyment or from, let's do personal enjoyment. Like,
I think, well, I love the Whitewater Center. We haven't done that as much lately because I keep breaking myself, but we used to go to the Whitewater Center and mountain bike ride a lot. I just find that place to be so cool. I like the kind of the more niche-y neighborhoods, kind of South End before it became South End was a lot of fun. Plaza Midwood, Noda,
yeah.
those types of areas. I just think those are they're interesting. But Uptown is hard. I go up there every once in a while, and you're like, this is kind of fun. I love the baseball field.
Yeah.
And what is it? The Lotta Pavilion, I think, is really cool. That reminds me more of like a New England thing. Optimus Hall, I think, is really a lot of fun.
I'm hoping that Charlotte gets like a second type of Optimus Hall situation, like another food hall somewhere else. I think that'd be great.
There's a couple, but they're not nearly as organized or big.
Yeah, I think a couple more. There's a new one actually in Uptown.
Yeah, that's the Lotta one.
Monarch Market.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they've probably got at least 10 restaurants in there. That one's actually pretty good too. So I love those because you can go in, if you're with a group, everybody can get something that they want.
Fun.
We take our family and friends to Optimus Hall a lot of times because like, I don't know what you want, but I want a burger from here, or I want dumplings, and you can go get whatever you want from.
Yeah, and then you all meet up in the middle, and you can hang out and have a good
Exactly.
time.
The problem is hunting for a seat. Sometimes you go around dinner time.
Yeah,
you got to go around
they made
off
some
hour.
curious decisions with the seating in that place.
That's a nice way to put it. Curious decisions about it. How would you describe the city now to someone who's never been here?
I think it's got an emerging restaurant scene. I think that we've always had that kind of. We're 5 to 10 years behind Atlanta, and I don't disagree with that. We have an emerging nightlife scene that's a lot better. One of the sad things I think is when we kind of went all in on the banking industry, they tore down a lot of the infrastructure and the charm of Charlotte, and put up big skyscrapers. And I did an interview recently talking about Uptown, and that was always kind of one of the hindrances of going uptown as a small independent restaurateur. Like, I don't want any more than 75, 80 seats, and they kept trying to force me into 4,000 square feet, which is like a 200 to 300 person restaurant.
Yeah.
And I don't have the financial backing or wherewithal to run something like that. And I think that's been a little bit of a frustration with the city, is that they've kind of torn down a lot of the charm and put up skyscrapers.
Yeah, I think that's moving here. We have struggled to see some of what like the old culture of Charlotte is, because a lot of it does get torn down, and so we've been lucky to have some guests on the podcast who still talk about some of the places that have been around for a long time. A couple of them have mentioned Alexander Michaels, and so we went and checked that out, like some of the long-standing Charlotte staples. But it is unfortunate that a lot of the history of the city seems to be shredding away slowly.
Yeah, and Richmond, I mean, you're from a city that has a lot of its original infrastructure.
Yes, it sure does. It's weird for me now that everyone's like, Richmond's got so much history, and I guess you never appreciate it when it's like in your backyard, but I've done so many of those Richmond tours and Monument Avenue and all the things, and now people are like, we just love that. That's a city that's full of history, and I'm like, yeah, I did all the field trips 1,000,001 times. Like, I could give you the history tour myself, and then we were close to DC too, and I mean, you want to talk about history, so we spent a lot of time in from DC, from Richmond, so got to see that. So that's one thing that I do and don't miss, that Charlotte isn't like, there's not a lot of history, like I think your typical American history here. I like that we're not one of those cities, but I do miss some of the city history, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like coming from Boston, there's a little history there.
Yeah.
And so,
Boston was one of my, I was obsessed with Boston as a kid, and I mean like a 7-year-old, that reading U.S. history, I just thought Boston was one of the coolest places. Didn't want to move there, but my family literally planned a vacation for us to go to Boston because I was obsessed with everything in Boston, and it's a very fun. It was cool to me. I thought it was incredible. Need to go back as an adult, probably a different experience.
and I feel like Charlotte's one of the most frustrating sports towns in the country.
We're going to move on to another topic before we start to commiserate there about the state of our sports here. But shout out to Charlotte FC, won a playoff game last night.
I did.
So, all right. So we talked about how you got into food. Now you have 3 incredible restaurants here in Charlotte. Can you tell me about each one of them? So Barrington's, Stagioni's, good food on Montford. Let's start with Barrington's. And some of the story, if you have like quick synopsis of like the stories of each of these restaurants.
Sure. I grew up in Barrington, Rhode Island, and when I walked into Barrington's, it really felt like New England-y, kind of homey. It felt like someplace that I might have gone to as a child, and so I was trying to think about, okay, maybe it's my kitchen table, something like that. And then finally we settled on naming it after my hometown. And I grew up with a grandmother and mother that always had gardens, always kind of were of the moment, pulled whatever they had out of the garden and figured out how to make a dinner out of it. And so I kind of had that as my mindset when I went there, when I went into the restaurant. So it was always hyper seasonal. I changed the menu a lot. I was very passionate about it. For the longest time, I was in that kitchen 6 days a week, for the entire year. Didn't really take many vacations. And it was just really kind of a passion project for me. And I got to, people ask me what kind of food, and while it can be easily classified as New American, I mean, I always tell them it's whatever I feel like cooking. And so we have some staples that are on the menu all the time. And then we change out the menu seasonally. And yeah, you can make an argument that it's very similar to the restaurant I worked at in Boston that was called Metropolis Cafe. And the interesting thing is, when I moved here, the restaurant's name was the Metropolitan Cafe. So, but yeah, so that was always been kind of like very personal to me, very passionate to me. I got to do exactly what I wanted to do and the food that I wanted to do in a way that I wanted to do. I hired mature, responsible people, had a very small, intimate staff. We all took care of each other. It was it's a great restaurant. And then Good food. Now we're on to good food. Good food.
Where we're shooting today.
Where we're shooting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I had been working with my brother. He had come down to help me get Barrington's open. I've been working with him for 8 years, and I think we're getting a little tired of each other. And then Larry,
as brothers do.
Larry, who I worked with in Boston, and who now owns Bow and Broth, which I'm a small partner in Optimus Hall in. So he had also come down to help me get open, and so I was kind of tired of looking at Larry too. And one of my staff members came in and said, "Oh, there's that Vietnamese restaurants for rent over on Montford," and she was married to a guy at the time who was a chef. He said, "We looked into it. They're only asking $14 a square foot." And to give you an idea, at that time, Charlotte, most of the restaurants were in the mid-20s per square foot,
oh, wow.
mid to high 20s. And so I thought, And so I came over, and we had been to a place called Avec in Chicago, and I really had that kind of wood feel to it. And I really thought, maybe something similar, small plates, might work here. And so I was kicking around the idea, and I went to the Caribou Coffee in front of Barrington's And I was talking to the barista that I was good friends with, and I told her I'm thinking about opening this restaurant on over on Montford. It's the rent's really cheap, and she's like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "It's just dive bar street, like, because that was called the Press Box, and then Moosehead." And she's like, "It's just a dive bar street. You don't want to do that." She's like, "It's just not." She's like, "There's no good food on Montford. There's never been good food on Montford." And I said, "Well, just to prove you wrong, I'm going to open this restaurant and I'm going to call it Good Food on Montford." And I was just kidding, and I didn't really think I was going to call it Good Food on Montford. But when I thought about anything else, it just didn't sound right. So that's kind of how the restaurant got its name.
That's hilarious.
And
Does she know? Does she know that?
yeah, she knows that.
That is hilarious.
And so we came in and we modeled it after a Vec, and my brother is one of the most talented chefs that I know, and Larry's a talented chef and a good logistics person. So I lost my two best people at Barrington's in one day, and sent them over here to open this up. And then the first year it was open, it got nominated for Best New Restaurant in the country by James Beard. And the year before that, I got nominated for Barrington's as Best Chef Southeast for Barrington's. So
Wow.
yeah. It was,
So in your first year, you get that recognition. Like that's gotta feel good. Like
It felt really good.
That's gotta be exciting that you started a new project and all of a sudden now
Yeah.
it's widely recognized across the country.
and then we had, I think it was the Democratic National Convention, and the Washington Post came in and did a review on it too, and they gave it a pretty good review. So
Good
yeah.
food?
Yep. Yep.
Wow. That's gotta be fun.
Yeah, they didn't start or anything, but what they said was, like, it was excellent. So that was cool.
I'm sure that was a very happy couple of days after that.
Yeah, you think it's going to change your world, and then you're busy for a week, and then everyone forgets about it, moves on. But still,
I mean,
we
to still have
that.
that moment is
Yeah,
really cool.
absolutely. Yeah, it was cool.
Okay, now my favorite restaurant, and this isn't just my favorite restaurant of yours. This is one of my top 5 restaurants in all of Charlotte, Stagioni.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big proponent of looking at a space and saying, I wonder if this will work. And when I opened Barrington's, there was nothing like it in the market. When I opened this, there was nothing like it in the market. And there was really no modern Italian in the market. And I just, I'm very space-oriented. I love the way good food felt. I love the way Barrington's felt. And when I walked into Stagioni, it was a clothing store. And I was like, but I love the feel of the building, and I just thought, like, this has got to be an Italian restaurant, and this is just pretty cool space, and so I wanted to do modern Italian. And one of the things that the Italians do is they go out to their backyard, and whatever is ready and available, they pick it and they cook it. And so I wanted to be an Italian in so much as have some Italian basics, but have that inspiration part of it too. And so that was just a monumental build out. Anything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Oh no.
Complete with my designer melting down on me and disappearing, and us finding that there was a layer of concrete, a layer of 2x4s, and then the old patio that led up to the pool. So we dug down almost 10 feet just to lay the plumbing. And then when we first opened, the plumber had hooked the plumbing up to the storm drain instead of the wastewater. And so all of a sudden I came into work one day and the EPA was standing there like, "Hey, we need to talk. You're polluting the environment." I'm like, "That's impossible."
Oh my God.
And they're like, "You want to make a bet?" And they poured all this green dye down my toilet. And we went to the back of the parking lot, and all of a sudden all this green water starts coming up. And they're like, "Yeah, you have 24 hours. You need to hire a pumping truck, and you have 24 hours to get that fixed."
Oh my goodness.
And so we had trucks there for 24 straight hours getting that fixed. And we got open, and it was a little rocky at first. The neighborhood really took some time to find us, but since I found the right mix of staffing, and I mean, really, that's what
Yeah.
these restaurants boil down to. Is I've been, I've been very lucky as well as very focused on finding the right people and the right mix of people to help me
To make a
execute
world of
my
difference.
visions. Yeah.
So maybe this is what led to it, but actually I got this from Kaylee, who has written about you a couple of times, so you know where I'm going with this. The Stagioni's. The ghost did she have anything to do with all the issues potentially that you had with Stagioni's? But from what I've read, she seems to be okay with you now. But can you tell me when you
100%.
found out about what is the ghost name? Blanche?
Blanche, yeah. So I had a vision for the restaurant. It was going to be a trattoria. It was going to have a lot of wood. It was going to have a lot of greens, like muted greens, a lot of that type of stuff, a lot of like dark leather or brown leather components. And that was kind of my vision. And so as we're getting ready to start the design process, this woman shows up who's probably, I think she was in her 70s, mid 70s at the time, and it was Blanche's granddaughter, Rosalie. And Rosalie started telling us about the history of the house and giving us tours of the house. And then we went to her apartment and we looked at, a lot of the furniture and a lot of the knickknacks that were in the house. It was all this old, and she told us, don't be surprised. She'll play with you. She's not malicious, but she'll definitely make you scratch your head. But don't be surprised because you're not alone in that house. And we were like, oh yeah, ha ha ha. And then as we kind of got into it, we realized that I realized that my original vision for the restaurant wasn't at all right, and that we needed to kind of pay homage to Blanche. She loved the color red, so we did the red light fixtures and we did the red upholstery. Up in the top of the house, she used to have seances, and then there's a bookcase on the top floor of the house that you can push open, and behind it is a big closet, a cedar closet where she used to hide some of her liquor during Prohibition. So if you look at Stagioni, there's a bookcase in there, and if you push the door open, her office is behind it. She loved angels, so we have the angel wallpaper. She loved reading and literature, so we have all the books. She loved cooking, so we have all the pots and pans.
So you did right by her so she wouldn't bother you too much.
Yeah, and yet, panels fall off the wall, but never when anyone's there. And like only at the dark. Then there was a meeting we were having late at night, and two people saw her out of the corner of their eye, and one girl started crying because something like clearly walked behind. And then there was a night where I was like, hey, Leanne, has anyone seen Blanche lately? And she's like, no, it's been all quiet lately. And right as I said it, and there's a logical explanation, nonetheless, right as she got done answering me, the hood lights and hood system came on. And we're like, I think she's tired. It's time to go home. But we definitely feel her presence there. And it's definitely a good thing. And sometimes you're like, I swear to God, I did not leave the silverware, like, because it'll all be at a weird angle. And you're like, I did not leave it that way last night. And maybe we did and forgot, but maybe we didn't. I don't know. It just
fun little thing in the back of the mind there.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, we've always kept that in mind. We kind of feel like she is a host of the house. She was very social and reclusive all at the same time, and I don't even know how that's possible.
So I love that restaurant. I didn't even know about the ghost story. I talked to Kaylee recently, and she was like, hey, I think the grandson or great-grandson sent a pillbox of hers to Kaylee from, like, early 1900 something. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to Bruce, and I'm going to talk to him about this. But the food there truly is one of my favorite restaurants in Charlotte. It's always so good. When we went the very first time, though, we ordered I guess half the focaccia loaf.
Uh-huh.
And it's huge. And it came out, my wife and I looked at each other like, we're going to order food after this? And, like, this piece of bread is ginormous. It was so good.
Yeah.
And then I think I got some white truffle tagliatelle or something that's just so good. But then the dessert, the Zeppelis there is one of my favorite things to eat in all of Charlotte, probably lifetime. But the way that it's sweet
Uh-huh.
and a little salty, it is so, so good. I could probably eat more of them than I should, and so I have to stop myself and try to take some home to eat later, but it is fantastic.
Yeah, those have. We tried changing up the recipe at one point and making them a little more like a donut, and
Please don't change
that did
anything
not
about
go
it.
over well. Like when we thought about changing the chicken at Barrington. So, at any rate, so yeah, that was not well received. So we changed it back, and it's been our most popular dessert, and we sell a ton of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, to people like me. I've been my last two birthdays. I told my wife, I said, you know what? This might just have to be a thing that every year for my birthday we come here. I was like, there are lots of restaurants in Charlotte we can go to, but knowing that that's what I'm eating on my birthday, like it tastes good every time, and I love it. So
And you come home covered in powdered sugar.
come home powdered sugar and laying on the couch and immovable for the next 2 or 3 hours. Like
Yeah.
we go there's no plans afterwards. Like when I'm
Yeah.
leaving Stagioni, it is to go home and lay down horizontally. That is it.
Yeah. Well, the thing about that is it's not a super heavy dessert either. You know.
It's all the pasta and the bread that I eat beforehand.
Yeah.
That's what gets me. Um,
We do go through a lot of flour.
so, doing my research about you, there are 5 kind of principles that you build your restaurants off of that I think is really cool. I'm gonna see if I can remember this. I think it's 5 principles: intentionality,
Yeah. I wrote that up with my son.
seasonality,
Uh-huh.
creativity, community, family.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about each one of those and what you're thinking about when you are developing a new concept, when it's already open and you're trying to sustain it? I find when people have foundational pieces like that, it helps them to maintain their true north. So how did those pillars kind of come to be for you?
So the son that I came down here to be with, he's now a graphic designer, and I approached him about just my branding and changing some of the stuff around, and so that was one of the things he helped me work on. He's like, what do you stand for? So first one was intentionality, and so I want to be very intentional about everything I do, from the ingredients that go on the plate to the style of food that goes on the plate to what the restaurant space feels like, to what to what your experience is when you walk through the door. Like I want all that stuff kind of thought about and curated. And then what was the second one?
Seasonality.
Seasonality, that's very important to me. I love one of the things that was kind of a surprise to me that I didn't really realize was that the farms in North Carolina are really good, and the produce is good, and the growing season is much longer than it is in New England, and so I had a lot more control over seasonality here, and I don't like stagnant menus. I like to kind of really lean into whatever is available and whatever's good. It's you can't cook a great meal with bad ingredients.
That's for sure.
My whole thing since I've moved to North Carolina is really learning how to highlight an ingredient and just get out of the way. Like we have really good sweet potatoes, so don't mask them. We have really good squash, so highlight the squash. We have really good Brussels sprouts. We have really good root vegetables, and then just like get it, serve it simply, make sure that people are able to enjoy every flavor component that's offered in that.
Yeah.
And it just kind of reminds you of where you live, grounds you with where you live, and it also helps support
Local farms.
Yeah.
We actually get, I guess it's a farm share, that we pay. I think it's like $25 a week, and it's from a farm in South Carolina, and they come and deliver it to different places,
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
up. So we pick ours up in Resident Culture in
Okay.
Plaza Midwood.
I love those people.
What is the name of the farm? White Hope
Why
Farm.
not? Okay.
And so we pick up from them, and we even started getting eggs. But when I tell you, our cooking at home has changed once we started picking up
Yeah.
groceries from them, because there are things that we would never. We got fennel and like a lot of dill or basil. And it's like we don't normally cook with these things, so we've actually gotten even more creative at home with like
Absolutely,
the dishes,
yeah.
because we kind of, for being honest, we probably had a rotation of like maybe 12 different things that we would cook, and so it's like, okay, we haven't had that in a while. Let's go to this, or we haven't. But with that, we've made all sorts of different dishes. One of my favorite, they gave us a lot of zucchini fritters. My wife
Yeah.
found some recipe, and I love them. And I just think it's cool that when you have those fresh ingredients, the creativity that because we want to make the most use out of what we have. And so the creativity that we have, and I'm sure that
Right.
makes a huge difference in the food that
Yeah.
you make too.
Yep. So we've always really leaned into seasonality.
Okay.
3?
Community or creativity? It's one of the two C's.
Community. Yeah. So when I moved here, Barrington's is hidden from the main street, and no one could see it. And I realized that I needed to become part of this community in order to succeed, because I didn't have the advertising budget. I didn't have the wherewithal to kind of, get my name out there. And so I learned early on, and actually enjoyed it, is to get involved in the community. Like, I would walk out in the dining room and I would learn who was in my dining room, and I'd learn about their family and what they did for a living and that type of thing. And then, as that progressed, a lot of these people were involved in a lot of charitable organizations and community organizations in Charlotte, and so it kind of naturally led to that, to just get involved and supporting local. I try when I can to pretty much buy everything I can from local people, and I try to get involved in a lot of local charities, and just I feel like the community's given me so much here.
Yeah.
And supported me so much and embraced me as a northerner from out of town, that it's really humbling. And so, I've always tried to give back to that community as much as possible.
Actually being a part of the fabric of where your restaurants are. And I think that's...
it just feels so much more personal than kind of Capital Grill or something like that comes in and it's just a corporation. And they just look at the numbers, and the menu is the menu. And
I think
the
that's
people
cool.
that come in are the people that come in, so...
Well, so part of the menu, I think, goes into the next one, creativity. So, like, there's a lot when you're changing your menu. There's creativity. What else does that mean to you when you're thinking about your restaurants?
Yeah, I think creativity means like collaboration too, and it's constantly like we've done it this way. It's introducing change. I've noticed lately that everyone in this country seems to want change, but no one's able to identify what change is, or I don't hear a lot of identification of what change means, and I don't hear a lot of acknowledgement of change is uncomfortable. Like doing something differently than you're used to is uncomfortable, and a lot of times it doesn't work in the beginning, and it doesn't work right in the beginning, and it's that kind of reconciliation of what did we do, what went right, what went wrong, how do we avoid having it go wrong, how do we move towards having it go right. So I think there's a lot of creativity in all aspects. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, there's creativity in the food. Like, my favorite thing is to take a dish that you take for granted. I want to be a theater major, so this is my theater. But so you take a play that you think is that you take for granted, and then kind of turn it on its side or present it in a way that you would not normally have seen it. And I think that's creative. But there's also creativity with the bar program. There's also creativity with the way we had a lot of creativity here because when I opened it, I was like, okay, this place will run like Barrington's. And we opened it up, and it did not run like Barrington's. And when we opened Stagioni up, we said this place will run like Good Food, and it did not run at all like Good Food. And there's that creativity of saying, okay, who's coming through the door? What are their expectations? They're not what we thought they were going to be. Like, how do we address that? Like, for here, it was getting, we had tablecloths, and we had an elaborate setup on the tables, and it would take 10 minutes to break down a table when someone got up and left. Well, that's 10 minutes someone's not eating.
Yeah.
And so it was like all of a sudden we're having the forks and knives already wrapped up and on the table with a glass, super simple, like there's not a lot going on. So you can clean the table, sit them down quickly. So it was creativity in that. So it's never taking anything, my creativity is never taking anything for granted, and just always questioning. I've gotten a nothing's ever good enough for you statement a lot over my years, and I say absolutely, like,
You want to keep getting better.
nothing's ever good enough for me. We can always do something slightly better. We can also always be a little more creative. We can also make ourselves more uncomfortable. None of us knew how to butcher a pig when we first started all this out, and now we bring in our own pigs and we butcher them ourselves.
Oh, this wasn't a saying. You actually butcher.
We didn't know how to do it. No, we taught ourselves to do it. It was super uncomfortable when we did it, but
Whoa.
we also saved on our food costs by doing it. And another benefit is we get to buy them from local farmers. So
I really thought you were saying, like, as a figure of speech, like, they say, like, how do you eat an elephant, like a bite at a time?
Yeah.
I thought that you actually butcher your own pigs in-house.
Yeah, we do that at Stagioni. We did it some here. We haven't done it lately. And we did a little bit of it at Barrington's. So, yeah, just bringing stuff like that in and figuring out. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know. I butchered a lot of fish in Charlotte, but I didn't do nearly as much of it as I did once I moved. I butchered a lot of fish in Boston, but now that I moved to Charlotte, I do a lot of it. And it was uncomfortable at first. So
Whoa.
It's that constantly, like, saying to yourself, I'm okay with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. And I think that my early life and all the failures in my early life made me super okay with being uncomfortable and,
Wow.
and working through it. And I think that's kind of a lot of the mentality I've brought to these restaurants, is if making us uncomfortable can ultimately lead to a better product, then let's do it.
Let's do it, yeah. Last one, family. I'm assuming that's probably family, staff, the team. Could you you've mentioned multiple times the very intimate teams you have. Is that?
Yeah, but I moved down here, to be to be more part of my family.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen a lot of customer families that have come and gone. There's numerous kids, and you're like, is that, 4-year-old really going to eat foie gras? And now they're 28 and they have kids, and it's crazy to see, like, the evolution of the families. And we try to treat our employees and our staff as family, but unfortunately over the years I've learned too that everyone's family until one day they're not. And that everyone, so you have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
a little bit. But yeah, I think that's important to me, and that's important to have that kind of dynamic. But it's also important to keep in the back of your mind that it's also a business. And
what is do you have a new concept coming up? From my understanding, it's like every 4 or 6 years you start to get maybe a little itch. So do you have?
There is a trend.
Do you have something else coming soon that you can tell us about?
Yeah, there's a little bar that I'm going to do in front of Stagioni. There was a salon or a spa that closed up. And I always thought it would be interesting to have something else in the center. And so we're going to do a little cocktail bar, and then it's got an upstairs part. And one of the things I feel like we've always been missing in that location is, or in all our locations, is the ability to do private dining. So it'll have a 16-seat private dining room upstairs too, with a little lounge that we can open up if we're busy and we need overflow downstairs, or if not. But it's just going to be more of a craft cocktail, wine, beer
Okay.
type thing. You know, I don't want anyone to ruin their dinner, so I'm just going to do
Still need to
small
make it over to
snacks. Yeah.
Stagioni.
So we'll have like a prosciutto slicer, and we'll have you know, cheese and little snacks.
Yeah.
When I first opened Stagioni, we had, and it somehow evolved into something that I never meant it to be, and so we ultimately took it up. But we had little snacks. It was like roasted almonds, cauliflower puree, stuff like that. You know, eggplant dip, things like that people can snack on.
Yeah.
And then in Rhode Island, in Rhode Island, we grew up in this stuff called strip pizza. And it's basically a focaccia dough with tomato sauce and like finely grated Parmesan cheese on it. And then they cook it in the morning, and then they just serve it, they just wrap it in parchment paper and serve it room temperature throughout the day. So I kind of want to mess around with that idea, because the manager at Yama is from Rhode Island, and I said, I'm thinking about doing strip pizza, and he's like, oh my God, strip pizza? He's like, I'll be there.
A little.
He's like, let me know. He's like, I love that place, and then he just rattled off three of the spots in Rhode Island that do it, that he likes to go to. So I was like, maybe only Rhode Islanders will know what it is, but still.
Hey, I'll be down to try it. The last thing I want to, give you some props. I've done my asking around and my Googles on you and what you guys have built here, but there is a lot that I hear that one of the early chefs that got a lot of national recognition, James Beard finalist in some of the different restaurants, but a lot of the farm to table stuff, a lot of the seasonality, the rotating dishes, I think from my understanding, a lot of that has come from you, and you see so many restaurants now, maybe not saying it's all you, but like you were one of the first to like do it well. And so one, as someone who enjoys a good seasonal menu in different places, thank you. And I'm curious, how do you feel about the state of the Charlotte food scene now and its evolution? And then who are some chefs in some restaurants that, just as a cook, that you're very excited about, that you think they do a very good job too, whether it's a seasonality piece, farm to table? Who are some of those people in the Charlotte food scene?
I think it's definitely grown and evolved, and I think there's a lot of younger, interesting chefs, and there's a lot of older chefs that have kind of paved the way. I think there's a lot of new, exciting farms that are out there that we deal with, and then there's new ideas like Fresh List that kind of acts as a clearinghouse for the local farms, and they pick up the produce and then they bring it to the restaurants. So it just seems like we're developing, more and more and more of a network of that. And I think having Johnson & Wells here has brought, as well as the Art Institute, as well as CPCC, has just brought kind of a level of professionalism and interest in the culinary that we never had when I first got here. I've been always enjoyed and followed Chris Coleman, who is now opening restaurant after restaurant after restaurant.
What are some of his restaurants?
Goodyear House.
Okay, yeah.
And he's teamed up with Bob Peters, who's a great bartender.
Yeah. Oh, so he's part of all those new ones that.
Yeah.
Yes, Bob Peters. He and I. He's on the list for us to talk to soon.
He's a character.
Yeah, I've met him a couple of times. He seems like a good time.
You better book 2 hours for that one.
Okay.
And then, I think Sam Hart is trying to do something that Charlotte's never seen with his counter and doing stuff. And then Eric, who's I've known for years at La Strica, right up the street. He was my chef at Stagioni, and he's arguably the most talented chef in Charlotte, and he's doing kind of a tasting menu over there.
What's the name of the spot again?
La Strica.
Okay.
It's right over by that kind of apartment complex.
Okay.
He's doing a great job, and I'm super excited about what he does. He has just a vast knowledge of wine, He spent years in the Willamette Valley, and worked with a lot of local vineyards. He's just a really interesting guy. Yeah, since you asked me now, I'm starting to run out of names and ideas, but there's a place called Yunta on South Boulevard that I think is kind of fun and interesting. And it just seems like there's just a lot of energy, more, I think, hits than misses lately. So it's been a fun time to kind of sit back and see the evolution. We did an OG dinner at Legion, or at the Trolley Barn, which is one of Legion's spots, a few months back. So it was really good to see Franz Cabelli, who I bought Barrington's from, and Tim Grudy, and Gene Briggs, and a lot of the chefs that I helped mentor me when I first moved here. And then they had a lot of the newer chefs like Jamie Lynch, who worked at Barrington's for a little while, and then went on Top Chef and did all that stuff.
Wow.
And then just some of the other younger chefs that are in town that are doing a great job.
So in case you were wondering if Charlotte has a quality food scene, all these chefs that you've rattled off, some of these restaurants I've been to and enjoyed, but for those outside wondering if Charlotte has good eats, we do, and it's only getting better. It's evolving, and I'm excited about it, because for us moving here, it's like, okay, the food scene is good, and then in 4 years, I've seen how it's already gotten better.
Yeah, I'd love for it to slow down a little bit so that we can actually hire good people again, but and I'd love to see more of a independent as opposed to the chain stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of flowing in here as well.
Yeah, the problem with a growing city.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun for me to get to hear the story from the man behind a handful of the restaurants that I really enjoy in Charlotte, and hearing how you're so connected and what the scene has been. So thank you for your time. Let us know when that bar is opening, because we will definitely be there, and then probably just slide on over to Stagioni for dinner. But thank you for spending some time with us.
Yeah, and thank you for thinking of me when you were doing your interview process.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you on our next episode. But for now, Queen City out. Thank you.